Hi, everyone. I'm Destiny, as you guys just heard, and I'm going to talk to you guys about e-commerce SEO today, which is very exciting. Bit of an intro. Will did a great job, but just to point out, I'm head of SEO at Princess Polly. I've been doing SEO for 7 or 8 years. You can add me on my LinkedIn if you want to hear more about how great I am, because I'm always keen to talk about that. But let's get into it. Search is changing. Kevin did a really great job at explaining the search behavior and how it is changing, but I have a couple examples. And what I want everyone to do right now is to think about a product or a service that they've recently purchased or are going to purchase. That could be new shoes, a laptop, a new car. Does anyone have an example they want to share?
A laptop.
Did I hear cat harness? Wow. What do I have something prepared for you, Kevin. Thanks so much. Back in the day, it was very simple. We used to just type in a keyword on Google and the 10 blue links would come up. Now it's not so easy. We go to ChatGPT and we get very specific. We type in cat harnesses for an orange cat with ADHD. If you guys know orange cats, you know that most of them have ADHD. Are there cat people in the room? Am I speaking to dog people? Fantastic. You guys get me. You can add me on LinkedIn and send me photos of your cats if you like. The results, we get very specific product placements. There's literally an orange cat on a harness. And I don't know if it has ADHD, but it might. So we know that results are getting very specific, but the question is, how do we actually get there? In e-commerce, how do we make sure that we want our products to come up for these very specific searches? But the question is how do we? My goal for you today is to understand that search in behavior and to actually have tools to implement visibility in LLMs, but also to maintain with Google. So let's understand that shift. And I don't have to go too much into depth because Kevin and Brody and everyone else has gone into it, but I'll do a bit of a recap. So we know that user adoption in LLMs is increasing year on year. It's still quite low, but it is increasing. We also know that it's becoming easier to check out in LLMs and Google with UCPs and instant checkout. And we know that the conversion for LLMs is very, very high. So it's worth actually having a proper SEO, GEO strategy to make sure that we're future-proofing our businesses for where the shift in the user behavior is changing. This is a big slide with a lot of words on it, but ultimately what I'm saying is that user behavior is shifting from short form to long form search queries, and the LLMs need that information to serve it. So those data points could be styles, sizing, occasions, locations, personas, or in my case, my cat's mental illness. We also know that everything is very personal and complex. So we want to make sure that our products do appear in those search queries. So let's break that down very specifically. I have some prompt data where I've used query fanout to actually understand what LLMs are using to retrieve that product information. So for query fanout, which Frank did a really great job at explaining very technically. Basically, when you type in a prompt, it breaks it into a couple of different variations, and it uses that information to pull in the best information. For this example, the prompt is best black dresses for cocktail events. And then in the query fanout, which I've taken from Profound, you can see that it actually changes it a little bit into little black dresses, LBD, 2026, best cocktail dresses for a wedding, and it uses a variation of search terms. It gets all that information to serve a product. Another example is using jeans. So when I'm looking for a pair of jeans, it isn't just blue jeans. It's size, it's wash, it's style. It's a lot more specific. And the search to return that has to be specific as well. So it's personalized and there's styling cues. The result? Sometimes there's shopping products, and we know that's increasing. And we know that the visibility for this is super important because conversion is very high. And we can see in this graph that ChatGPT is actually giving more products now more than ever. The biggest misconception, and I think most people would agree, that GEO isn't a separate strategy. It's working on things that we know are best practice, but reframing it and reviewing it to be better. I really liked what Jess Schultz said, that SEOs do need to be better because previously it was very easy to just do a checklist, and now we actually have to think about different channels, different priorities, and different way of searching. But ultimately, GEO is just really great SEO. It's just the things that we might not have done previously. Google is still a big traffic driver for all businesses, so we don't want to jeopardize our visibility there. And we know that search is changing, so how do we actually change accordingly? So the challenge is AI visibility for e-commerce. And I'm going to give you the exact playbook that you need to consider to execute it properly. So there's 3 things we want to consider. It's technical accessibility, which Frank did a really great job at talking about. There is long tail product queries, and how do we actually use that within content to scale? And what James has been speaking about, which is digital PR, to reinforce that all of this is underpinned by trust and visibility, which is at the heart of actually driving consumers to purchase. So let's talk about some action points. No one has said this yet, which I think is very interesting from a technical perspective. LLMs can't see JavaScript. So if you have any critical elements in JavaScript, review that, because it will not be seen by LLMs, or by Google, honestly. It's not news. How LLMs do digest your information is using your HTML, getting your structured data, and looking at your feed. Very simple, but it's not new. We've been doing this for a long time. However, if you've neglected it, it's time to revisit it. Feed management. Feed management is definitely something that Brody has touched on before, and I'll sum it up in a couple of points. Basically, make sure that you do have your feed and it's submitted. Make sure it's optimized. So make sure you have your keywords in your product name. Make sure you have all the variables within your feed properly inputted, and tailor your feeds accordingly to each channel. So Google has a requirement, ChatGPT has a requirement. They are similar, but they have different attributes. So review that. And if you want to get really expert and you have a lot of time and patience, you can A/B test different ways to optimize feeds. Schema. This might be a little bit divisive because I know a lot of people think that schema isn't important for LLMs, but it's my opinion that it is. And I have the microphone. So there is a study that says that 57% more AI overviews triggered on long tail search queries compared to those without schema. So schema is a direct pathway to actually influence and give content to LLMs directly. And this is my favorite topic right now, reviews. So if you remember query fanouts, it was using all those data points to inform a result. The easiest way to get product-led queries into your data is by utilizing your reviews. In e-commerce, if you have reviews on your product pages, as an SEO, you've probably neglected them because there might be another department or they haven't been very influential. But as multiple people have said today, reviews influence LLMs. And those reviews have your best content. And you don't have to rely on a copywriter to do it most of the time. So the issue is that these reviews, most times, are actually written in third-party JavaScript, so they're invisible to LLMs, which is astounding because it's such an easy way to actually implement content at scale. I'll give you some examples. If I were to go into ChatGPT and ask them to tell me what this page says about this product with the reviews on the page, it's not too bad, but it pulls in a third-party website. If I ask it directly, what does this website say? It's crawling somewhere else, and it's giving me a Trustpilot review. It's also linking me to the Trustpilot page. So you're losing that direct link, and you're losing that brand narrative that you should be able to control directly on that page. It's not too bad because this Trustpilot review is actually pretty positive, but you can imagine how bad it would be if you didn't have a very good Trustpilot review. And just to highlight how informative these reviews actually are, is anyone into skincare on Skin Talk? Yeah, absolutely. You guys know how important it is, hand in the back, that there's different use cases for each product. You have different personas, you have different queries that you're looking for. These reviews, for example, talk so much about absorption, lightweight, how it's healed their dry skin. So informative, so valuable, invisible to Google and to LLMs. It goes on. There's about 4,000 reviews on this page that are completely invisible. It goes on to talk about ingredients. So how great this ingredient list is, how nourishing the ingredients are. And then my favorite thing that it talks about in these reviews, acne. If you've ever struggled with acne, you know how it's one of the biggest concerns for people, for teenagers. However, all these reviews talk about how great this product is for acne, and LLMs have no idea. So if your prompt is, what is the best moisturizer for a teenager with acne-prone skin, your competitor is going to come up because LLMs have no idea that you have so many reviews for this one product. And it gets scarier. I have another example where I asked Claude to show me the reviews for this product. 17,000 reviews. 17,000 reviews that talk about how amazing this product is, completely invisible to Google and LLMs. And it goes on to say that you can just ask. You can literally just ask Claude or ChatGPT, what do these reviews say? And it says, I have no idea. And then we can do it again, where I went into ChatGPT and I asked, what does it say on this product? And it's super scary because it literally pulled in Reddit data saying that this product sucks. It doesn't, by the way, it's a great product. And the sizing's bad, the quality is bad. And then it suggests people to shop somewhere else. So if you're not controlling your reviews, you're losing that brand narrative and you're eroding your quality of the brand. So let's look at what it looks like when reviews are optimized. This is another skincare brand. I'm obviously on a journey. This is Go-To. And if you know Zoe Foster-Blake, she's amazing. I did the same exact experiment where I looked at the URL and I asked him, what do the reviews say? It pulled the direct reviews on the website and the actual rating on the website. So it's not sourcing third-party information, you're controlling the narrative, and if people do want to shop, they can directly with that link. I also like Go-To Skincare for their reviews because they're structured very well, and we know LLMs love a lot of structure. So these reviews structure for use cases, for concerns, for different queries and different personas, which is fantastic. And they even have FAQs that are written by users and then responded to by the business. And of course, Princess Polly has our reviews marked up. I'd be amiss if I didn't shout out our best-selling product, the Nelly dress. It's polka dot, it's trendy, it's beautiful. There's 500 reviews on this page, and you can see with ChatGPT that they're actually getting pulled through. So we're controlling the narrative, and it's a viral product, so there's a lot of people talking about it. And we also have our reviews marked up for height, weight, occasions, and uses. So it's very easy for us to actually maintain those query fanouts and actually target them appropriately. And the best part about it, we don't have to write any of these. We're actually getting users to write all of these reviews. And so we don't have to have a resource for a copywriter. It's so simple. But ultimately, the issue with not doing this is that if you're not optimizing your reviews, you're leaving high intent searches, read money, on the table. And when you do optimize reviews, you're preventing your negative brand association, you're controlling your narrative, you're linking directly to your website so it's easier for people to click through and convert, and you're targeting visibility for high intent searches. So it just makes sense to optimize your PDP reviews, your product reviews. So a bit of a walkthrough. I'm going to bring in my cat again. Basically, when you're typing in on ChatGPT, a long tail prompt, you get fed some products. Why do you get fed those products? Because, well, there's a lot of reasons, but partly because you probably have some content on the site that matches that prompt and a bit of authority. The second part of that is authority, right? So we have our internal trust mechanisms that allow users to validate their search query. But we also need to have a foundation of trust from external third parties. I'll go into that more in a second. But how do we actually check and see if these reviews are pulling through and optimized? It's very simple. You just check your code. If you're not technical SEO, this isn't scary. It's very easy. You look in the source code, you find a review. You can also look at your structured data to see if it's pulling through that way. I almost guarantee no one is actually marking up their written reviews in their structured data. You probably have your aggregate rating, but you probably don't have your written reviews. So you can double check that. And then a bonus is having both of those things, HTML and your structured data. In the result, you can see our products show up. It's so easy, you guys. This is using Profound, which is a great AI visibility tool to track your prompts. Back into the external authority. So James probably spoke about this a bit before, but it's about getting mentioned in highly influential publications that influence LLMs. For us, that looks like Reddit, Who, What, Where, and Wikipedia. Who, What, Where is because we're fashion. It might be G2 if you're SaaS. Could be a couple others. But ultimately, we know that we want to be seen in these publications, in these forums, to influence our prompts and the results. How do we do that? Digital PR. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I know exactly how to do a campaign and to do outreach and know what publishers like, because that is a whole different discipline, as we heard in the panel before. It takes a lot of work to actually do that. So we outsource it. We have an agency. What I've learned from the agency is that our campaigns need to be relevant, right? Like James had an example earlier that Princess Polly is probably not going to be in a hot dog eating contest. But we will be we just launched a campaign earlier this week, best US cities for a concert, because we have Coachella and festival wear, so it makes sense for us, it's aligned. And we know which publishers we're going to target with that campaign. And then we can track and monitor those campaigns, looking at backlinks and brand mentions. I do have a quick win for you guys, which is very fun. Instead of going to your developer and saying, my reviews aren't in my HTML, how do I mark them up in my structured data? There is a Shopify. If you're on Shopify, there's an app coming out that will just do it for you. So that's super easy. Good takeaway. And then how do we actually measure this impact of utilizing reviews, digital PR, and a technical foundation? You can look at your citations, your brand mentions, your brand sentiment, and your revenue. You can also look at an AI visibility tool. I like Profound, but there's heaps of other great ones. When you are looking at your prompts and tracking, I tend to look at a category level. So instead of looking at the individual prompt itself, I like to look at the category because results can change, they're very personalized, but if you're winning the category, you're likely increasing your visibility. And then also with these AI visibility tools, you can easily review your query fanouts to influence how your reviews actually pull through. So easy checklist for you guys. It's not a strategy. You do still have to review your overall marketing, implement your best practice SEO. These are just a couple of things that we can reframe and look for in terms of LLMs. But ultimately, do a technical audit, look at your reviews, look at your feed, look at your structured data, see if your reviews are pulling through, and maybe hire a digital PR agency to help you with those brand mentions. To wrap it up, GEO is just really great SEO, but we reframe it to actually change for that change in search behavior. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.